Welcome back to 2% Football Camp. I'm Eduardo, Sicilia,
And today we will talk about cover 2, determine the defensive players' assignments, and how to beat them. The cover 2, just like we mentioned in the previous video, consists of 2 players covering a deep zone. Now, these, unlike the man covers we have talked about, it is based strictly on zone coverage all across the field. In a traditional cover 2 defense, we'll have the 2 cornerbacks covering the flat area. This one consists of this rectangle over here, which goes from the sideline to pretty much the numbers and from the line of scrimmage to 6 or 7 yards away from it. Our 2 outside linebackers will cover these 2 areas right here, the hook areas. In the case of our middle linebacker, he will cover this zone right here, the whole zone. And then on the back end, of course, we have our 2 safeties covering each half of the field on the back end. Just like with any other cover, the cover 2 has different variations. The first one and easiest to explain is the cover 2 trap. In the regular cover 2 that we just explained, the cornerbacks normally start on a press alignment. They try to disrupt the receiver's route and then they focus on their zone. Now, the only difference with the cover 2 trap is that now the cornerbacks will be starting at 4 or 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage, and instead of moving and waiting for someone to jump into their zone, now they're gonna be stationary until someone comes again into their zone, but this time they have the freedom to be more aggressive and attack the ball. Even though this can put more pressure on the safety and maybe create an even bigger responsibility for him, this can lead to a splash play and maybe even an interception by the cornerback. The second variation and the most famous one is the Tampa 2. Due to the big space that both safeties have to be aware of in this cover, the space in between them is normally the most vulnerable one. This is exactly why in the Tampa 2, they ask the middle linebacker to extend his whole zone and make it more deep to help out the safeties. To compensate this, they ask the outside linebackers to cover a little bit more of the area outside of the hook zone, but also inside of the hashes. Third variation is the cover 2 invert. Just as you might expect from the name, all that's gonna happen is that the safeties will exchange responsibilities with the cornerbacks. Before the snap, they will start creeping in and cover the flat areas while the cornerbacks back away and cover a deep half. Now the last one and normally less used is the cover 2 robber. This one's pretty similar to cover 3, we will talk about this in the next video. And if we want to figure it out, we might say it's a combination between Tampa 2 and cover 2 invert. This is what will happen. One of the 2 safeties will approach the line of scrimmage and will take one of the flat areas. This will make all the linebackers' responsibilities to shift. This would make the outside linebacker of the opposing side to take the other flat area, while having the 2 cornerbacks take the deep halves, just like in cover 2 invert. Now, our 2 other linebackers left will both take the hook areas, while the free safety is the one who takes the whole area. Each player's assignment is simple. As soon as any offensive player comes into their zone, it becomes their responsibility to cover him. Now, the most important adjustment when it comes to assignments comes from the cornerbacks. Their initial job consists of not only disrupting the receiver's timing and route, but to send him to the inside part of the field. This is called funnel. This with the intention of getting him closer to the linebacker's zone or the safeties. Also, while doing this, they'll be observing the inside receivers. If anyone does an outbreaking route, they will drop the outside wide receiver and they will take care of this guy who's coming into their zone. However, for example, in this case, we have 2 wide receivers on one side. The cornerback starts to develop his usual job, but while he's peeking, he realizes both receivers are running vertical routes. He will forget about everything else and he will continue with the outside receiver. This way, both him and the safety will take each one vertical route and they won't allow one of the 2 receivers to run by himself. If this would happen, the linebacker on that side will be responsible for any short route on that side. Here are the 4 points of attack to beat a cover 2. Number 1, you gotta make sure it's cover 2. Like we talked about, the regular cover 2 and all its variations have different moving pieces all around us. So even though the initial stance might give us some clues, we gotta make sure during the play that that's the defense we're facing. Number 2, attack the vulnerable zones. Even though we can encounter different personnel lining up in different types of zones in this same cover, its weak points will always be the same. The middle ground between the flat area and the hook zone, the space between the flat zone and the deep half zone, and the middle third. Now, in case we face a Tampa 2 or cover 2 robber, that would only give us more space on the underneath part of the whole zone. Number 3, like always, we gotta create conflict for the defenders. We have to tag the same defender with 2 routes and let him pick his poison. Wherever he goes, the ball is going the other way. Here, for example, we'll use a simple concept, smash. This one consists of our outside receiver running a hitch while our inside receiver runs a corner. First of all, something that's important is that the corner is already attacking one of the vulnerable zones that we have talked about. Now, assuming an accurate pass is thrown, we can erase the safety from the equation. And last but not least, like we explained, these 2 routes will put the corner in conflict. If he decides to stay in his zone on the flat area and cover that hitch route, we'll put the ball over his head and throw the corner. If he bails out and cover that corner, we'll take the easy hitch. At the end of the day, we'll make the corner be wrong every single time. We put him in conflict. And number 4, we gotta use their tendencies against them. We can determine this in 2 ways. By studying their previous games, or right there in that day by studying what they are doing during the game. For example, let's suppose that we have been using the slant flat concept a lot, which by the way is also very effective against this cover. Let's suppose we have completed the pass a couple of times in the slant, but in the last one the safety came downhill and had the pass breakup. So we notice this. What's next? We call the same concept, but now it's a slant and go, a slow go. We knew the safety was gonna come down. Boom, over his head for the touchdown. And this because we were simply taking advantage of his aggressiveness that we have been paying attention to throughout the game. Use their tendencies against them. That's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe. Once again, I'm Eduardo Sicilia, and this was 2% Football Camp.